Hi Office fans, I'm a rail fan and model railroader. This video investigates railroad subjects of the Office TV show. I guarantee that there are some interesting background catches and details no one has ever talked about before. Showrunner Greg Daniels decided to tie the environment of the show to Scranton, Pennsylvania. Railroads had a significant historical presence in Scranton, including the New York, Ontario, and Western up to 1957, Jersey Central up to 1972, Erie, and Scranton's primary railroad, Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western, which merged with Erie in 1960 and taken over by Conrail in 1976. The Steamtown National Historic Site Railroad Museum continues to provide a strong railroad significance today. The office probably had more appearances of train-related subjects and props than any TV series other than shows like Petticoat Junction that featured a train as an important character. Erie's Scranton Passenger Station was purchased and converted to Cooper's Seafood House in 1948. That restaurant was mentioned in the episodes Branch Closing, The Merger, Moroccan Christmas, Heavy Competition, Launch Party, and The Banker. It was on the accounting whiteboard in the extended cut of Fun Run. Dwight wore Cooper's t-shirt in Beach Games, and Michael took Holly to lunch there in Business Ethics. Today, Cooper's Grill, Bar, and Train Room are part of the former station. The Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western passenger station and offices opened as a Hilton hotel in 1983, but was sold and renamed the Radisson Lackawanna Station Hotel in 1995. The hotel was the setting, though not the filming location, for Dwight's speech, as depicted in a deleted scene and on the hotel website. The Steamtown, USA site at the former Erie-Lackawanna Freight Yard got its start in 1984 as a nonprofit railroad museum that displayed steam locomotives. It was acquired and designated a National Historic Site in 1995 by the federal government. It hosts about 100,000 visitors each year. The name Steamtown has such a significance to the community that several businesses and even a church use it in their name. Steamtown Mall was built adjacent to Steamtown, USA and completed in 1993. The mall was mentioned in Take Your Daughter to Work Day, Local Ad, Casual Friday, Koi Pond, The Cover-Up, Counseling, The Boat, The Farm, and Michael took the women of the office there in Women's Appreciation. The Steamtown Marathon, mentioned in The Meeting, was founded in 1996 and finishes in Scranton. Though not mentioned or shown in any episode, here is the picturesque Jersey Central Freight Station in Scranton. That's about 1,000 feet north of the Steamtown National Historic Site. Dialogue referencing a train or railroad was in 15 episodes, plus one in a deleted scene and another one in an extended version. Let's listen to clips of all of them. My episode numbers follow the convention of Office Tally and Wikipedia, where supersized episodes count as one, but double episodes two. The Internet Movie Database and NBC Peacock use different conventions. Some of the dialogue featured train-themed props that we'll focus on later.
Right now, this is just a job. If I advance any higher in this company, then this would be my career. And, well, if this were my career, I'd have to throw myself in front of a train.
Jan Levinson Gould. Jan is cold. If she was sitting across from you on a train and she wasn't moving, you might think she was dead. Dwight, nothing is going to happen to me, okay? I'm in the best shape of my life. Look at this.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. You could get a brain aneurysm.
I'm not going to get
or hit by a car.
Stop.
Or a bus or a train. You get poisoned, fall down a well, step on a mine, choke.
Hello. Can I help you? You can pick that up if you want. That's all right. Want to bring it over? Here, we'll make some room. My name's Michael. What's your name?
Sasha.
Nice to meet you. Oh, you know what that is? That is a train whistle, like I'm the conductor. But I'm sort of the conductor of the office here, right? You want to try?
Sure.
All aboard for sales. Next stop, Kabanga.
In the Martin family, we like to say, looks like someone took the slow train from Philly. That's code for check out the slut. Why are there flies in here?
There's my girl. Noticed you handing out some shekels. How would one get on that train?
That was per diem for Philadelphia.
There are 4 kinds of business: tourism, food service, railroads, and sales, and hospitals/manufacturing, and air travel.
Runaway train never coming back. Run away and I'm never coming back.
Michael?
Well, why are you sitting on a train? Where are you going?
I'm out of answers, Jan.
What does that mean?
I told you, no more answers. This is who I am now. A guy on a train with no answers. I hope that can be enough for you.
Michael, come on.
I don't want to be married in a tent like a hobo.
Hobos live in trains.
Nana, Mimi can't be in canvas that long.
Hello, sir. How are your trains?
Sounds like a EMDP 40.
Nah. That's a GE. The P40 is much higher pitched.
You're in the trains?
I've been my whole life.
Wow.
I'm rebuilding a turn-of-the-century steam engine in my slaughterhouse.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, I'd love to take a look at that.
Yeah, it's just a run-of-the-mill slaughterhouse, but sure, anytime.
Well, you know, because of the trains.
Hopped off the train in Scranton, PA, another cloudy gray afternoon. Jumped in the cab, here you are for the first time. Look to the right, and you'll see the Electric City sign. This is gonna be a good day for Dunder Mifflin and Sabres.
What I'm offering is a ticket on a bullet train straight to middle management.
It's just good to catch a Michael train of thought early before it derails and destroys the entire town.
And you and me, that must have been a real train wreck. You know what? Holly, you're wrong.
I'm gonna need a list of every man you've ever had sex with. I'm talking train stations, men's rooms.
Flower shops, fireworks celebrations.
I'll make it. What are you drinking?
An F train to Brooklyn, extra bitters.
Come and ride the choo-choo. The sex choo-choo.
I like to think of Schrute Farm as the Underground Railroad for the sensitive and, well, fabulous.
Toots, we're not stopping this train, so get off the tracks.
There were 7 train-themed props in the series, 6 of them recurring. Full-size train cars were used in 2 episodes, and video clips of in-service trains or cars appeared in 7 episodes. The model train locomotive appeared in the collection of Michael's Desk Toys during 6 seasons. It changed position more often than any other train prop in the series, and as we were told by Pam in the episode The Return, one of Dwight's assumed duties was to arrange the desk toys for Michael in a pleasing way. The introduction to the prop was in Season 2, Episode 18, Take Your Daughter to Work Day. Toby's daughter, Sasha, walks into Michael's office and starts handling an HO scale model of a coal-burning, turn-of-the-century locomotive with a 440 wheel arrangement that's on Michael's bookcase by the side wall. He invites her to pick it up and bring it to his desk. She used her left hand to do that, even though she's later shown to be right-handed, presumably because the camera angle was better. The Superfan extended version of that episode includes a scene where Toby brings an armful of desk toys back to Michael, including the locomotive and All Aboard for Sale's whistle that Sasha took earlier in the day. It was an operating scale model of the Union Pacific locomotive at the driving of the Golden Spike ceremony to complete the first U.S. transcontinental railroad. Here is a famous photo from that ceremony where the locomotive is on the right. A full-size operating replica is at the Golden Spike National Historical Park. It was the model shown in this photo, produced by Bachmann. It had an electric motor in the tender because there was not enough room for it in the boiler, as evidenced by the drive shaft from the tender into the bottom of the cab. The model used in the episode was discontinued after the 2015 catalog, but a similar model with more features is currently available as item number 52707. Besides moving the motor from the tender to the boiler, the new model added a coupler on the front. Remarkably, the tender was turned backwards behind the locomotive in most of the later episodes. Note how the stripe on the tender goes from one side around the rear of the tender to the other side, and the stripe ends in a semicircle before reaching the front edge of each side. Another clue is where the narrow end of the coal T shape is closest to the locomotive, as well as the painted toolbox hinges. This table lists its appearances. An unlisted episode does not mean it was removed, just that the camera did not pick it up. The timestamps, based on the Blu-ray DVDs, may not indicate every time it was visible in an episode, but sometimes more than one is listed for reference. It appeared in at least 57 episodes, counting a deleted scene plus a webisode. The locomotive was gone when Michael left to form his own paper company near the end of Season 5. It showed up after he returned in Season 5, Episode 26, Casual Friday, but the tender was disconnected and the drive shaft gone. The wire was still attached. The tender was in the correct direction up to Season 6, Episode 15, Sabre. The wire between the tender and locomotive would have to be broken for the tender to be backwards. The last time the wire was clearly seen attached was in Scott's Tots 3 episodes before. The tender was backwards most of the time during and after Sabre for more than 1 year. In the episode Whistleblower, the tender was backwards, but someone was tricky to turn the coal around so that it faced the correct direction. The locomotive no longer appeared after Season 7, Episode 20, Training Day, when D'Angelo moved into Michael's office and redecorated. The tender was backwards in the middle of that episode, but turned correctly in the last shot of it. A new refrigerator magnet appeared in the first episode of Season 4, Fun Run, at the upper left corner of the refrigerator in the kitchen. It had a drawing of a steam locomotive and lettering that read, Rolling into the Future, Steamtown National Historic Site. It lasted 4 seasons and appeared in 48 regular episodes, plus one of the extended episodes, and 2 webisodes, before it was replaced by other magnets. A flyer for a model train show appeared on the bulletin board in the break room, opposite the vending machines, above and behind the water cooler, in the first episode of Season 4, Fun Run. The flyer announced that the show was scheduled Sunday, October 28, 2007, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Lackawanna Station Hotel. It is a little clearer in the following episode, Dunder Mifflin Infinity, from a different angle. The timing of the flyer was perfect for those 2 episodes, which aired September 27 and October 4th, being about 1 month before the train show. This is the flyer for the 2017 train show that has the same format. The Facebook icon and price increase from $4 to $5 in 2017 were differences from the 2007 version. It was evidently up the entire season, visible in 3 episodes, and last visible in the season finale, Goodbye Toby, even though it was 6.5 months after the train show was over. It was in the background and hardly readable, however. A one-time railroad-themed prop appeared in Season 7, Episode 19, Garage Sale, where Kevin was trying to sell a small, in-scale model railroad. In-scale is about 1/2 the size of HO, and the length of a typical freight car is 3 inches. It had an oblong-shaped track layout, something like this, with the left end going through a tunnel in a mountain. There were turnouts at mid-length of the front and rear straight tracks to make a bypass track. A sign on the mountain read, "The Mountain Hamlet of Meterschnell." There is disagreement among Office fans about interpreting the handwritten spelling of that last word, and the mixture of lower and uppercase letters in it is unusual. Meterschnell is close to the German word for medium speed. Kevin unknowingly knocked over the locomotive and a freight car on the track with his hand when he stood up, and then knocked over a gray boxcar with the bottom of his sport coat about 1 second later. There was at least one other freight car on the track, a yellow stock car, not knocked over. The model railroad was not mentioned in the episode. There was an L-shaped paved road down the center that turned to the front. The structures were manufactured by Bachmann, the same company that made the model train locomotive in Michael's office. The company's location about 100 miles south of Scranton, in Philadelphia, might have had something to do with the inclusion of their products. The model railroad included a church with a figure. The figure was discontinued as part of the church starting in the 2008 catalog. There was a 2-story house, a water tank, factory, auto body shop, seen from the rear, a new car showroom, and a train station. On the right of the table, a deleted scene showed a gray boxcar on its back that was missing the wheels and a coupler on the left end, as though it had been dropped and damaged after the scene that aired was shot. There appeared to be a diesel locomotive mostly hidden behind a tree near Kevin's right wrist, and Kevin was test rolling a yellow stock car coupled to a gondola. The clicking sound indicated at least one set of wheels was off the track. The post-it note stuck on the lower right corner of the sign had a $200 price on it. The painting in Jim's office of a passenger train appeared in 12 episodes, starting at Season 6, Episode 3, The Promotion. Here is how it was titled at the bottom. I can't make out the beginning of the last line, but it ends with ELD CPS, which stands for Erie Lackawanna Dining Car Preservation Society. An old message board said that the painting used to be for sale on the eldcps.org website, but that URL is now redirected to the Dining Car Society, which does not mention it. The painting was moved a few inches higher on the wall starting in the episode Murder, probably so that it would not be visible when filming Jim seated at his desk. The painting was visible up to the manager and the salesman, but was gone after Jim moved out of his office. It does not appear to have moved with Jim to Michael's former office and was not seen in subsequent episodes. In the Office Ladies podcast for shareholder meeting, April 5th, 2022, Angela read a message from a listener that the painting is of the passenger train Phoebe Snow at Scranton. However, that is incorrect. The train was the Lake Cities at Hoboken, New Jersey. The painting in Jim's office was very similar to this photo taken at Hoboken in 1969. The close similarity suggests that the artist used the photo as the subject of his painting. Wikipedia says, the Phoebe Snow ran on a daylight schedule between Hoboken, New Jersey and Buffalo, New York, making the 396-mile trip in about 8 hours. Timetables confirm the daylight schedule, showing it departed Hoboken at 9:35 a.m. westbound and arrived at 5:30 p.m. eastbound, and it stopped in Scranton at 12:50 p.m. and 2:15 p.m. in the afternoon, respectively, with some variation in schedule time over the years. The painting showing night is inconsistent with midday stops in Scranton. As an aside, there were up to 8 trains leaving or arriving Hoboken in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Besides the Phoebe Snow, other named passenger trains included the Owl, the Lake Cities, the Twilight, the Erie-Lackawanna Limited, Pocono Express, Atlantic Express, and Pacific Express. The only way to tell the name of a passenger train was if it had a sign on the rear card, which it often did not have, the train number on the locomotive number boards, if the car had a distinctive paint scheme, or the train's location and time in combination with a timetable, and none of those clues are in the painting. The Phoebe Snow train was discontinued in November 1966. The only Erie-Lackawanna trains with a diner when the photo was taken in 1969 were the Lake Cities, leaving Hoboken westbound as train number 5 at 7:30 p.m., and arriving eastbound as train number 6 at 8:45 a.m. The photo must have been taken in the fall, winter, or spring of train number 5 due to the darkness. A fun fact is that U.S. railroads used even train numbers eastbound and odd numbers westbound. If the route was north-south, north was usually even. Airlines generally continue the practice the railroad started for flight numbers today. The dining car in the photo was originally built in 1925 and was extensively rebuilt in 1947 at the Erie's shops in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania. It received its 741 number and gray and maroon paint scheme after the merger of Erie with the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western in October 1960. It was retired in January 1970, but eventually acquired by the Dining Car Society in 2001, externally restored in Kansas City, Missouri in 2007, shipped to Scranton, Pennsylvania in 2012, and is currently waiting interior restoration in Port Jervis, New York. There were 2 wooden train whistles on the set for most of the episodes in the series. One had "All Aboard for Sales" lettering that was kept in Michael's office. The other was lettered Steamtown National Historic Site that was on a file cabinet near Oscar's desk in the accounting area. It was the most enduring of the train-themed props, appearing in 102 episodes over 6 complete seasons, plus 5 webisodes, starting with Season 4, Episode 1, Fun Run, and lasting to the finale. It was moved and turned, but it always remained on one of the two file cabinets shown. It was never mentioned or touched in any episode. The other side of the whistle had this diagram for whistle signals. Note that in contrast to the diagram, short, short, short is usually used for backup, and short, 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 long is flagman protect ahead of train. The lettering for whistle signals was right side up when the mouthpiece was to the right. The lettering for Steamtown National Historic Site was right side up when the mouthpiece was to the left. The other two sides of the whistle were blank. Its appearances and orientations are listed in this table. It was on the left cabinet season 4, except for Dunder Mifflin Infinity, but then moved to the right cabinet the rest of the series. It most often had the Steamtown National Historic Site facing forward, but it was sometimes turned so that any of the four sides was shown, and sometimes with lettering upside down. The episodes Michael Scott Paper Company and Angry Andy were the only instances where the Steamtown National Historic Site lettering was upside down. In Mafia, it started out in the normal orientation with Steamtown National Historic Site visible, but a few minutes later, whistle signals was visible. It was removed for the cold open of shareholder meeting, probably because of the Recyclops rampage, even though he did not disturb the area where the whistle normally was. But then it was visible in the normal spot halfway through the episode. In Weight Loss, it started out with a blank side visible, then switched to the Steamtown side during the episode. The Target was the last episode the lettering appeared abnormal, with whistle signal side upside down. In the final 15 episodes, it was in the normal orientation with Steamtown on the front and on the right cabinet, but it moved left and right. One example was in A.A.R.M, where it started out near the center of the cabinet, but then migrated left. In addition to A.A.R.M, it appeared in the opening main title with theme song in Inner Circle, Junior Salesman, The Farm, Livin' the Dream, and Finale. The All Aboard for Sales whistle was introduced with the model train locomotive in Season 2, Episode 18, Take Your Daughter to Work Day, where Toby's daughter Sasha played with it. After moving the locomotive on Michael's desk for a few seconds, she pushed it aside and picked up the wooden train whistle marked All Aboard for Sales on two opposite sides. The other two sides were blank. Note that the All Aboard for Sales lettering started at the mouthpiece end on each side. That made the side on the user's right always right side up and the other side upside down. Notice also that even though Sasha grabbed the locomotive with her left hand to move it to Michael's desk, she held the whistle in her right hand, and she later took candy from Phyllis's candy bowl with her right hand, indicating she's right-handed. Michael intentionally held the whistle so the lettering would be on the side and handed the whistle to her the same way. When the camera angle changes, the whistle orientation suddenly changes so the lettering is on the top and bottom rather than the sides, and she switches to hold it in her left hand because of the camera angle. It was normally seen to the left of the window in Michael's office with the lettering right side up. This table summarizes its appearances in 63 episodes, not counting a webisode, from near the end of Season 2 until Michael left in Season 7. It did last for an episode after Michael left. It was always in Michael's office except for when he blew it while seated at Jim's old desk in The Manager and the Salesman. It was temporarily moved for one episode to the top of the bookcase on the left wall in Season 3, A Benihana Christmas, to make room by the window for a Santa Claus decoration. An unusual exclusion was Season 7, Episode 9, WUPHF.com, where a printer was in its place for just that one episode. An unusual moving of the whistle during an episode occurred in Season 7, Episode 4, Sex Ed, where the whistle started out in the normal orientation with All Aboard for Sales facing forward, Then it was turned 90 degrees in the next 2 minutes so that the mouthpiece faced the wall. Then it was turned back to the normal orientation at the end of the episode. It also appeared in episode 9 of The Office, the Accountants webisode, where Kevin blew into it while in Michael's office. The first episode in season 5 showed the whistle when Michael looked out of his window to see Pam walking with Jim in the parking lot in the episode Weight Loss. So we know that shot had to be from a writer's office window that was used for the view from Michael's office. But after that, there was an extended absence of the whistle for over a year. So perhaps it was accidentally left in the writer's office and forgotten. Its reappearance in Season 6, Episode 14, may have been to set up Michael's use of it in Episode 16. U.S. steam locomotive whistles were usually manufactured to make a pleasing, harmonious sound with the notes called chimes. There is one chamber for each note in the whistle assembly, each one very much like an organ pipe, where the longer the chamber, the lower the pitch. The 2 wooden train whistles used in the series were 4-chime. The railroads used up to 6 chimes on their steam locomotives. The smaller locomotives, or utility steam engines, like on steam cranes, would use a single chime to enable signaling but save expense, where it was not often needed as a warning signal when crossing roads. And public perception of a less pleasing whistle sound was not important. Railroads could specify the manufacturer and model of the whistle when they ordered locomotives to make the sound different from competitors or for their own different locomotive classes. Whistles can sound slightly different from each other even though they have the same notes, based on material and details of construction. They work when the valve admits steam through a circular slit or aperture that impinges on an edge of the chambers. The sound volume and exact pitch of individual chimes respond differently to steam pressure, so the engineer could vary the sound, called whistle quilling, by the rate and how far he opened the whistle steam valve when he pulled on the cord or chain in the cab, and thereby customize the sound for his own pleasure and to let others know he was the one running the train. He could make it a little quieter at night or when passing by a church on Sunday morning to lessen the disturbance. That also used to apply to diesel air horns when the engineer had direct control of the air valve by pulling a cord, but modern locomotives use an electrically activated solenoid valve that eliminates that kind of control now. The engineer was the only crew member in charge of blowing the locomotive whistle or horn, not the conductor, as mentioned in the episode. Diesel air horn notes are also called chimes. Each note is produced by a separate horn in the assembly. The Nathan K5LA is a popular train horn in use today. It is the standard horn for AMTRAK, CSX, Norfolk Southern, and Illinois Central, as well as commuter trains. The scenes with Michael, Jan, and Boxcars in Season 4, Episode 8, Money, were shot at the Fillmore and Western Railway. That makes sense because of the safety concerns, liability, and disruption of filming on an operating railroad. The Fillmore and Western provided railroad props to the TV and movie industry. They went out of business in 2021, and most of their assets acquired by the Sierra Northern Railway. The camera followed Michael toward a moving train with a tank car behind the locomotive, followed by 3 40-foot, rusty red colored boxcars with riveted, rather than the more modern welded, construction, and single open doors. They were of the modified 1937 Association of American Railroads design, with 10-panel sides and riveted plates at the lower left corner of the door opening for additional strength. The first boxcar had a Youngstown corrugated door with wooden tackboard near the lower right, and Style C stirrup steps with an angled side at each bottom corner of the car. Its roof walk was removed, but it still had full-height ladders. Roof walks were required to be removed from in-service boxcars by April 1974 for safety reasons. The second boxcar had remnants of a faded automatic car identification code used in the 1970s to the left of the door, and still had a roof walk and full-height ladders. Unlike the first boxcar, the second and third had superior doors, Style A stirrup steps that were rectangular, and continuous side sills with additional bracing under the door area. A parked Fillmore and Western GP35 locomotive, number 3501, is visible at the start of the scene. Visible at the end of the scene, GP35, number 3502, was the locomotive pulling the train. The GP35 was built by EMD, a division of General Motors. Their GP series, or general purpose, has four-wheel trucks, while the SD series, special duty, has six-wheel trucks. Passenger cars behind the train intentionally block the camera's view of what lies beyond. They are of the type built around 1930 and would not be appropriate for in-service use when the episode aired. The tank car behind the locomotive was a chemical tank car. For safety on a real railroad, it is illegal for it to be coupled to the locomotive if it is loaded or has any residue of a hazardous chemical. A potential continuity discrepancy was when Michael was shown sprinting away from Dunder Mifflin towards the north side of the freight yard, but the cars at the Fillmore and Western facility faced south in the episode. The sides of the cars and actors and ground would be expected to be in sunlight, but the area around the boxcars was in shade most of the time. In contrast, the ground ahead of the locomotive was in sun. Light diffusing shades over the boxcar area might have been used for that, or maybe it was just clouds. The lighting changed significantly between shots over a few seconds duration of dialogue. Notice the lighting on the passenger car in the background, too. Here is sun, here is in shade. Sun, shade. There was a very unusual step under the open door of the boxcar that Michael and Jen climbed into. It is a stirrup step that is normally only at the side corners of the car. Another oddity was that its style was different from the Style A rectangular shape of the other stirrup steps on that car, but it does match the Style C on the first boxcar of the train. It was much funnier to watch Michael flop his belly onto the floor rather than use the step, of course. Jan was able to elegantly hoist herself up to a sitting position without using the step. Even though not used by the actors, the step might have been helpful to the cameraman when he went inside the car to make a shot. All boxcars in the scenes were unrealistically devoid of lettering, some of which was required by federal law for in-service cars. There would have been a fun opportunity to use made-up, temporary reporting marks with initials like AKJF for Angela Kinsey and Jenna Fisher, for example. BSGD could represent Ben Silverman and Greg Daniels. It would have been appropriate to avoid using real initials, for example, SCRW for Steve Carell, Rainn Wilson, would conflict with the real-world Seaway Commercial Railway. The initials used in reporting marks are a 2 to 4 letter abbreviation of the railroad name registered with the Association of American Railroads. The car number below it is assigned by the railroad and is 1 to 6 digits, usually in numerical groups for each type of car, like boxcars, flat cars, gondolas, tank cars, stock cars, refrigerator cars, etc. The railroad had unique numbers for each of their cars. I chose 7174 since they are the birth years of Angela and Jenna. Self-adhesive vinyl letters and numbers would have been one temporary option if painting lettering was not allowed by the Fillmore and Western. Since the first boxcar was different from the other two, it could reasonably have had different reporting marks, or all three could have been different. 3 lines of weight data are below the car number, and the location abbreviation followed by month and year of the last weight update is at the lower right. It is required to update the weight data of boxcars no later than every 5 years. I used CLC as a made-up abbreviation for Culver City, and the February 2004 date represented my guess as to when Jenna and Angela started working together on the Office pilot. Other lettering that could be near the top on either the left or right include the name of the railroad, herald or logo, and a slogan. The lower right side could include car dimension data, the month and year built, and the railroad's designation of the car's class. Michael and Dwight were seated in the upper level of a bi-level coach car in Season 3, Episode 2, The Convention. The dialogue was all about Dwight wanting to get his neck pillow back from Michael. The train horn could be heard. The scene was only 13 seconds long. Michael and Dwight were supposedly traveling by train from Scranton to Philadelphia, but there has been no passenger train service from Scranton since 1970. AMTRAK offers bus service from Scranton to train connections in Philadelphia. In the Office Ladies podcast for this episode, Jenna went to producer and production manager Kent Zabornak for the AMTRAK train information. She said, "They let us shoot on the train for free, but we had to agree that we would not disrupt their schedule in any way. So on day 2 of filming, while the set dressers and the production designers were setting up the hotel room at the convention, Steve and Rain and a very small crew with about 5 extras, they loaded into vans and they drove to the Simi Valley train station. They boarded the caboose car at 10:30 a.m. They were given the caboose car all to themselves. They got settled. The train started moving. Kent said that they got their first shot off at 11:03. Then when the train arrived at the Burbank Airport station at 11:27, they got off the train and there were vans waiting to pick them up and take them back to our main set." That was the AMTRAK Pacific Surfliner, probably train 774 based on its schedule. The cars were usually run in a 6-car set. They were owned by the California Department of Transportation, operated by AMTRAK, and only used in California. Since they were in the caboose, or last car, it probably would have been a combination cab-coach baggage car since the train ran with the engine pushing going north. In Season 6, Episode 2, The Meeting, a 2-second video clip of a freight train is shown. The engine sound is heard, but no horn. Toby and Dwight don't see the train, but they discussed whether the locomotive was an EMD P40 or a GE, based on the sound. Then Dwight mentioned that he is restoring a turn-of-the-century locomotive in his slaughterhouse. The designation of an EMD P40 is confusing because the P40 was a GE locomotive built for AMTRAK, not EMD. Plus, there's no fundamental characteristic that EMD locomotives have higher pitch than GE locomotives. EMD had SD40 locomotives for freight service, and they used to make an SDP40 for passenger service. The locomotive was a Canadian Pacific AC 4400 CW manufactured by General Electric. The 4400 refers to its horsepower. Its color and barely readable Pacific under the handrail are the clues to Canadian Pacific. So Dwight was right about it being a GE unit. Perhaps connected in some way, about the time the episode was shot, production started August 31st, 2009 on the movie Unstoppable with Denzel Washington and Chris Pine in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It used 4 Canadian Pacific AC-4400 CW locomotives, repainted for the fictitious Allegheny and West Virginia Railroad. The movie also used 2 EMD SD-40-2 locomotives, which might have inspired the writers of the episode to have Toby and Dwight debate whether the locomotives they heard were GE or EMD, and Toby to say P40 instead of SD-40. Note that EMD stands for Electromotive Division of General Motors, later changed to Electromotive Diesel when it was sold in 2005. A fun fact is that GE Locomotive headquarters is in Pittsburgh and main manufacturing facility in Erie, Pennsylvania. Dwight's turn-of-the-century steam locomotive would have been challenging to transport, load, and unload without a train track on his property because it would weigh at least 30 tons. In reality, it would require a significant part of his life if just Mose and he were working on it, plus significant expense and building space. It's inserted to set up the joke that Dwight thinks Toby would be more interested in seeing the slaughterhouse than the locomotive. A TV screen in Poor Richard's Pub, Season 9, Episodes 22 and 23, A.A.R.M, represented a broadcast from the PBS station. A 2-second clip showed that the next program would be The Office, an American Workplace. The video on the screen showed a moving subway car, a Breda Model A650, the type used on the Los Angeles Metro Rail subway system, first purchased in 1993 and still in service today. The cars were built in Pistoia, Italy, and Breda is now Hitachi Rail, Italy. They are run in trains of either 4 or 6 cars. They have been included in many commercials and movies like Volcano, Speed, 2012, SWAT, and The Italian Job. The name Erica Wright at the top of the credits on the left could be honoring a CNBC producer. The 2 names under additional camera operators were members of the Office production staff. The 2 names under production assistants are the 2 nephews of director David Rogers, mentioned in the Office Ladies podcast October 16, 2024. The subway system is fully underground, but the tracks near the maintenance facility south of Los Angeles Union Station on South Santa Fe Avenue are above ground. The subway in the video is headed away from the maintenance yard toward the tunnel about 0.4 of a mile away, leading to Union Station. This Google Earth Street View and satellite images confirm that the camera was on East 3rd Street, just west of the intersection with South Santa Fe Avenue. It was about 25 feet above the street, close to the top of the window on the right. The Sci-Arc sign on the building is for Southern California Institute of Architecture. Comparison of satellite images show that some buildings were demolished and others built after the subway video was made, but some structures were still blocking the view back then. The spiral driveway in the street view was just starting to be built when the video was made. The episode air date was May 9th, 2013. The intent might have been to use buildings to intentionally block out much of the surrounding area from the camera to make it less recognizable and more generic. The railroad tracks and freight cars across the street from the Office Studios and Dunder Mifflin were shown in 5 episodes and were a plot point in the episode Money. In addition to the tracks, this view shows Stage 3 that had the main office set and Stage 2 that had the warehouse set, with writers' offices on the 2nd floor and the show's parking lot in front. As summarized in this table, the freight yard was first shown in Gay Witch Hunt, where the train cars were briefly shown before the camera panned down to the main entrance in the parking lot. They were shown in the view that Michael and Dwight had from the roof in Safety Training. Michael saw the freight cars and moving locomotive from the conference room, while Jan was berating him for losing his money in the Money episode, giving him the idea to run away. They were what Michael sprinted toward before cutting to the Fillmore and Western facility that substituted as the freight yard. Only the very top of the moving locomotive is visible in money, but it appears to be a Union Pacific SD-60M. Jenna said in the Office Ladies podcast, February 2nd, 2021, for this episode that the view from Paul Lieberstein's office window served as the conference room window. The train track south of the office studios on Satakoy Street was and still is the Union Pacific main line between San Francisco and Los Angeles, through Oxnard and Ventura. The collection of tracks there is called the Jimco Yard. It served the large GM assembly plant from 1947 to 1992 that was on Van Nuys Boulevard. Its name, Jimco, was derived from GM Company. The GM plant was torn down and property used for a shopping center called The Plant, with stores including Home Depot, In-N-Out, PetSmart, restaurants, and a movie theater. The yard continues to be used to store loaded and empty cars, assemble local trains, and serve approximately 100 industries within a radius of about 40 miles, a major one being Budweiser to the west, on the other side of the I-405 San Diego freeway. Around the time the office was produced, it had 10 tracks with a capacity of 300 cars.